One day, we see a knight chasing a girl in the forest. When she falls in front of him and he corners her, she strikes him in the face. Suddenly, the skin on his face peels off due to a spell he had cast on himself, and he wants to kill her to take her mana and use it in his spells. But suddenly, a person appears behind him named Zugum, grabs his head, and says, "You're causing a disturbance in my area, and I can't sleep because of you." The knight replies, "We're both sorcerers. I could share my prey with you if you let me go." He responds, "I don't want anything from you," and blows up his brain. The girl collides with this and faints from what she witnessed. Zugum uses a spell to remove the blood and restore the knight's face to how it was. He decides to move her from that place so as not to leave her unconscious on the road. Strangely, his spell doesn't work due to something interfering with it. He wonders, how did this happen? Even though I'm in my area and have placed protective spells around it to block anyone else? Suddenly, his friend Barbatos appears and asks Zugum to stop interfering with his spell. Barbatos notices that the girl has a large amount of mana and asks, "What will you do with her?" Zugum replies, "Using someone else's mana isn't my style," and teleports her away. Barbatos is annoyed that he didn't leave her for him to take and use, so Zugum leaves him to go sleep. Barbatos asks him, "Did you know that one of the demon lords, Marcusius, died?" The demon lords are people with a huge amount of mana and have the authority to command lower-ranking sorcerers. Marcusius was the oldest among them. Zugum is shocked and says to Barbatos, "Tell me the details." He replies, "An auction will be held in Marcusius area for some items that you and I are interested in, like the inheritance of a demon lord." Zugum replies, "I thought you came to tell me the news, but it seems you came because you needed money." Barbatos replies, "You're the only one I know who could lend me this money, so I came to you." As they walk, they find a knight running to his commander, and Zugum notices tension in the city. Barbatos tells him, "It's because of the people kidnapping girls to perform sorcery experiments on them." Zugum asks, "What's their goal?" He replies, "I don't know, but I suspect they're planning to summon something important, like a demon." He asks, "Aren't you suspected in these kidnappings?" Zugum replies, "That's stupid because experiments on other humans are pointless." They enter the auction arena together and find some celebrities there, like Mars the Black Panther, the Witch Grimmery, and Falfer the Illusionist. Zugum asks Barbatos, "Are they strong?" He replies, "Yes, they are candidates to become one of the 13 demon lords in place of Marcusius, and I am also a candidate." He asks him, "And who will decide in the end?" Barbatos replies, "The other 12 will discuss and decide." At the same time, 2 of the candidates for the demon lord position are talking to each other and pointing at Barbatos, saying, "That person is on the list of candidates for the demon lord position." Suddenly, they hear the auctioneer's voice announcing the rarest item to be sold at the auction, a girl from the elf race with natural white hair, not dyed. He tells them, this girl was supposed to be a follower of King Narcosius, but after his death, they decided to sell her at the auction. The moment Zugum sees her, he is captivated, and the auction starts at 10,000. Suddenly, Zugum says, 1 million. Everyone around him is shocked, and he wins the auction from the first round. He jumps up to stand in front of her but can't find the words to say. The girl looks at the ground with a fixed expression. He finds a collar around her neck, controlling her mana to prevent her from escaping. Zugum asks the auctioneer, "Is she conscious?" He replies, "Don't worry, we've kept her in her natural state. She has amazing abilities, so no spell has affected her." Suddenly, Zugum says, "I want to hear the sounds of agony she'll make." The auctioneer and everyone around him are startled. Then, he takes her home with him. He sits on his throne with her in front of him, still unable to say anything. The girl interrupts his thoughts and says, "Can I ask a question?" He is surprised she spoke, captivated by her voice, and replies, "Ask." She asks, "How exactly are you going to kill me so I can prepare myself?" Zugum is shocked, stands up, and says, "I'm not going to kill you. I need you alive." She looks around at the torture tools and asks, "Should I expect something worse than death?" Zugum becomes even more flustered because all these things belong to the previous castle lord, and he was too lazy to remove them. He calms down and introduces himself first. He says, "I'm not interested in torture," and tries to ask her name, but doesn't know how. She says on her own, "I am Nephelia." He likes her name and asks, "What's your family name?" She replies, "I don't have a family name, but you can call me Nevi." He asks, "Is not having a family name common among elves?" She says, "No, I'm the cursed child." She asks him, "Are you planning to experiment on me?" He says, "No," and is afraid to admit that he bought her because he fell in love with her at first sight. Then he stands up and says, "For now, choose the room you want." She asks, "The room I'll die in?" He replies angrily, "I told you I won't kill you." She says, "I don't understand why you won't do it." He realizes she had a painful childhood, was captured, sold as a slave, and told she would likely be a test subject. He thinks to himself, "I don't know the story of the cursed child, but she doesn't seem to want to talk about it. I was the same. I didn't have a family name and can't even remember my parents. The only thing I remember is living in the garbage, and people called me Zugum." He says to her, "I bought you because I need you, so don't talk about death anymore. He takes her to show her the rooms, so she can choose one. Suddenly, as they're going up the stairs together, she slips, and before she falls, he catches her and holds her steady. While they're going up, he suddenly opens a door and finds a guillotine inside, so he quickly closes it. Nevi bows and says, "Take my head as you wish." He says to her, "That must be a misunderstanding. It was definitely a trap for the castle's protection." He opens the door, finds a spell, and blows up the guillotine. Nevi enters and sees the moon from the balcony, admiring it greatly. She asks Zugum, "Can I take this room?" He asks her, "Are you really satisfied with this place?" She says, "Yes, because it's the room you prepared for me." The next day, Zugum stays motionless because Nevi is sleeping on the floor next to him, since her room isn't ready for her to sleep in yet. Then he feels hungry and gets up to get food. Nevi wakes up to find him coming in with food and says, "Good morning," but he doesn't know how to reply. As they eat, Nevi is surprised that Zugum is eating the same food she is. She says, "It's good that I got food, but it's strange that you're eating it too." He is shocked that the food is so simple. She says, "Yes, this is the food given to slaves like me." Zugum is stunned because this is the food he was used to eating since childhood when he was alone, as it was all that was available. He starts thinking, "What do normal people even eat?" She says, "I can make food for you." He is startled and asks, "You know how to cook?" She says, "Yes." He becomes even more impressed with her and decides to take her to buy ingredients so she can cook for him. On their way, they find a merchant passing by who says, "I'll give you a ride for 3 bronze coins." Zugam remembers that he spent all his wealth buying Nevi and has no money left. He says, "Walking is much better," and takes her to walk. He thinks about how to get money, like selling the torture tools he has in the palace, but no one would buy them. Or, he could beat up the merchant, steal his cart, and use it, but he tells himself, "No, then Nevi will see me as a bad person." He thinks about selling the palace and opening a restaurant with Nevi. Suddenly, they hear the merchant screaming and find a group of bandits attacking him. Zugum feels a tremor of fear from Nevi as she watches the scene, realizing this is the same way she was kidnapped and made a slave. He decides to be a hero in her eyes and save the merchant. Lightning strikes the bandits, killing most of them. The bandits are surprised that a sorcerer is coming to save someone, since sorcerers are usually the ones doing evil deeds. They attack him, and Zugam decides to show off his strength in front of Nevi. One of the bandits swings an axe at him, but Zugam easily catches it, breaks it with his finger, and hits him in the face, making him bleed heavily. The bandits call for their sorcerer, who arrives and is very surprised. "How is a sorcerer doing something good?" Zugam asks him, "Did they hire you?" He replies, "I don't know who you are, but you'll regret meeting me." He draws a magical circle with fire on the ground, but Zugam stands there, without any fear. With a single gesture, he extinguishes the flames. The opponent says, "Nice move, but it's too late," and tries to activate his magical circle, but is shocked to find it doesn't work. Zugam says, "It's over. I've taken control of this circle. It's mine now." He uses it and obliterates the sorcerer. The bandits are terrified of Zugam's power and flee quickly. Zugam looks at Nevi and finds her scared, which makes him tense up, feeling he did something wrong. He says, "Don't worry, those petty thieves are completely harmless." People laugh at them and thank Zugam for saving them. The merchant says, "I'll give you a ride for free and reward you." Zugam thanks him, accepts, and thinks to himself, "This is a great way to earn money." Though sorcerers already have a very bad reputation. When they arrive in the city, Zugam wonders what to buy for Nevi, but expects her to say she's fine with anything. So, he decides to take her to a clothing store to buy her new clothes. Nevi is very happy. Before they leave, the shop owner whispers in her ear, "It's good that someone cares about you this much." Next, he takes her to the blacksmith and asks, "How can I remove the collar around her neck?" Nevi is surprised that he wants to remove the collar. The blacksmith says, "No, this collar is made with special sorcery, and I believe it's also booby-trapped. If you break it by force, it could sever her neck. There must be another way to remove it." Zugam remembers that the auctioneer said they didn't know how to remove it, so they likely didn't take the key from the demon lord's palace when they took her. Zugam thanks the blacksmith and offers him money, but before he leaves, the blacksmith says, "No, I won't take your money. It's a repayment for saving me and my daughter from bandits a year ago." Zugam thinks this must have been a coincidence, as he wasn't intentionally saving the blacksmith, he was just killing people as usual without reason. After leaving, Zugam feels uneasy because so many people treated him kindly today, something he's not used to as a sorcerer. On the other hand, the blacksmith is surprised that Zugam's appearance has changed, and he no longer looks as terrifying as before. Zugam and Nevi go to the market to buy what they originally came for. At dusk, they enter a restaurant and eat together. Nevi asks, "Do you really plan to remove the collar around my neck?" He says, "Yes." She asks, "Aren't you worried I might run away once it's removed?" He thinks to himself, "That thought has actually been on my mind, and it could happen. Nevi has no reason to stay with me anyway. But even if she runs away, it's not a big deal. The important thing is to remove it." He replies, "I still don't know how to remove it, so I don't want to give you false hope." He scolds himself for how he's talking to her, saying the opposite of what he wanted to say. He thinks there must be a sorcery book that teaches him how to talk to girls. Then, Zugum notices Nevi looking at the food with confusion. He asks her, "Is something wrong in that?" She says, "No," and remembers when she was little, living among her people before becoming a slave. She tells him, "I've never eaten food like this before." Zugum finally feels like he understands why he was drawn to her and captivated by her. It's because she's like him and has likely gone through similar experiences. He tells her, "Eat as much as you want. This is definitely better than what we ate this morning." Nevi tries to use a fork, but can't figure it out. She remembers the spoon and tries to use it instead, tasting the food and really liking it. Zugum tries to use the fork and can't, feeling extremely embarrassed. Nevi eats it, and he feels even more embarrassed, so he eats it too. People watch them and laugh at their cute awkwardness, making them feel embarrassed, so they leave. On the other hand, the girl whose knight Zugum blew up in front of her is walking, now wearing knight's armor. We learn her name is Shastel, and she goes to the castle. She remembers being in a battle to exterminate evil sorcerers, and on her way back, knights suddenly attacked them. She fled into the forest, where Zugum appeared and saved her. Lord Clavel enters and says to her, "Welcome, hero." She replies, "There's no hero who takes a mission from you and returns with 4 dead knights." He says, "That's not your fault. You promised to avenge them, so be proud of yourself." Then, he adds, "After wiping out the sorcerers in their hideout, we discovered the person responsible for all the kidnappings is a sorcerer named Zugum." Shastel is shocked and says, "Impossible." He replies, "Sorcerers are evil. Even if he wasn't involved in the kidnappings, he's one of the evildoers and must be controlled." She requests to be put in charge of searching for him, and he agrees. The next day, Zugum wakes up to find Nevi in front of him, waiting. She says, "Breakfast is ready." This time, he's the one who says, "Good morning." He enters the dining hall to find it very clean and looking great, unlike what he was used to. He sees Nevi has prepared a lot of food and asks, "Did you go buy bread?" She says, "No, I baked it myself." He's even more impressed by her. Later, he goes to his library. Nevi comes in and asks, "What are you reading?" He says, "Obviously, I'm reading about sorcery." She replies, "I thought so, but I wasn't sure those drawings were for sorcery." He asks, "Does sorcery among elves have different drawings?" She replies, "I don't know anything about sorcery at all." He's surprised by her words, even though she has a huge amount of mana. He begins explaining the basics of sorcery to her. He draws a very simple circle in front of her and says, "This creates lightning if I add my mana to it." When he shows her, she's amazed. He says, "This is the lowest level of sorcery." He starts adding more symbols to the circle to gain more control over the lightning. He adds mana, and this time, the lightning is greater and stronger. Then, he says, "But the problem with this circle is that if anyone puts their mana into it, they can use it. So, we need to add a restriction, so that only the one who drew it can activate it." She says, "You added things outside the circle. Can you add things inside it too?" He says, "Nice observation." The answer is both yes and no at the same time. If you do that, the mana will conflict and block each other, preventing the spell from working. But someone who can do it correctly is a person with complete control over their mana. She asks him, "Does that mean it's possible to nullify another person's spell?" He replies, "Yes. And if someone can do that, they would be the strongest person in the world. But all of this is theoretical. No one even tries to do it because it's considered impossible." She says, "I understand the basics of sorcery, but can anyone do it?" He thinks she seems to have good talent and replies, "Yes. For sorcerers, the more knowledge you have, the stronger you'll be. That's why we set up traps and tricks to prevent anyone from stealing knowledge. Be careful if you touch any books here." She gets startled and becomes afraid of the books near her. He says, "I'm joking. I disabled all the traps so they won't activate if you touch the books." She feels reassured and is happy that this is the first time Zugum has talked to her for this long. He says, "Because sorcery is the thing I know most about, I talked a lot." Then, she asks him, "What will you do with all this power?" Zugum is silent for a moment and replies, "I never thought about it before, but I think I learned all of this to save myself. When I was young, I had no money or place to live, so I had to steal. Even then, I was better off than many others like me, because I didn't die. But one day, someone captured me because children were suitable for experiments. I managed to save myself from him. At that moment, I realized I had to become stronger to survive." Nevi looks down with despair and says, "I could never become stronger." He says, "If you're interested in sorcery, I can teach you." Suddenly, he feels someone entering the barrier around his palace. It's Shastel and her knights. He tells Nevi, "Prepare dinner. I'll be back." He goes out to confront them. On the other hand, Shastel breaks through Zugum's barrier with her sword and enters. Zugum appears in front of them, looks at the sword in Shastel's hand, and recognizes it as one of the 12 legendary great swords said to have slain the Goblin King. Then, he looks at Shastel and remembers she's the girl he saved from the knight, the one who fainted when he blew up his head in front of her. He thinks to himself, "If I had known she was a knight, I wouldn't have let her go." Zugum attacks first with lightning. One of the knights jumps in front of Shastel with his shield and and blocks the lightning. Zugum notices their armor is good. The knight gets angry at Zugum and charges at him quickly. Zugum runs toward him, punches through his armor, sends him flying, and says, "Will you leave, or will you make this girl carry your corpses alone?" The next knight attacks him. Zugum breaks his sword with his finger, hits him on the head, knocks him to the ground, and steps on him. He says to Shastel, "If I were you, I wouldn't attack, because I could crush his head with my foot right now." She stabs her sword into the ground and asks, "Why are you torturing him? Do you want to humiliate us after we've lost?" He replies, "If I kill all of you, the castle will treat it as just 4 deaths. But if I torture you and let you return to the castle, the news will spread, and everyone will fear me." He presses his foot harder on the knight. Shastel gets angry but suddenly says, "You're lying." He thinks to himself, "How did she know I'm lying? I really don't want to kill them so Nevi doesn't see corpses here." Shastel pulls her sword from the ground and decides to finish Zugum off. He creates a shield with a magical circle, but she breaks it with her sword. He decides to dodge her attacks better. Shastel feels he's mocking her and doesn't want to attack. He says, "I don't know how to attack women." She gets very upset and says, "Why would someone like you taint your hands with sorcery?" He asks, "Is using sorcery a crime?" She replies, "It's evil and used to harm people." He asks, "And the power you use, aren't you using it to kill sorcerers weaker than you?" She attacks him. He places his foot on her sword and continues, "I'm not trying to justify myself, but a large number of people need sorcery just to survive, and if you're trying to exterminate them for money, you have no right to talk about justice." Shastel hesitates for a moment, pulls her sword from under his foot, and pierces through his magical circle. He grabs the sword with both hands, lifts it, and throws it at a tree. Zugum finds that his hand is burned, and his healing spell is slow due to her sword. He decides to kill her because there's no other solution. Suddenly, she whispers to him, "Play dead." He is surprised, and she explains that the church won't stop hunting him until he's dead. If he defeats her, they'll send stronger knights after him. She says, "Pretend to be dead, and after that, live your life as a normal person." He says, "I can't believe I'm hearing this from a knight." She replies, "You didn't kill my men, and you talked about spreading fear, even though I saw mercy in your eyes." He is shocked by the word mercy because he knows he is an evil person. She continues, "And I haven't forgotten that you saved me." He thinks that what she's doing is forbidden and puts her life in danger. He tells himself, "I can't accept this because if I run away, Nevi will be attacked." Suddenly, Nevi comes out of the palace. Shastel's companions see her, and one of them throws his spear at her. Zugum runs quickly to her and blocks the spear with his hand, but it pierces through. Nevi becomes very angry and raises her hand. Plants sprout from the ground and grab all the soldiers. Zugum quickly grabs her and says, "Enough." She regains consciousness and stops the attack. At night, Nevi treats Zugum's hand, and he thinks about Shastel apologizing to him and leaving with her soldiers. Then he asks Nevi, "Didn't you say you can't use sorcery?" She says, "That wasn't sorcery." He says, "It doesn't matter to me what your power is." Then he asks her, "Were you afraid?" She is surprised and asks him in disbelief, "Don't you see me as scary?" He replies, "Of course not. I was just curious, because I've never seen power like that before." She is surprised and says, "That power was magic." Zugum is shocked that magic truly exists, not logical techniques like sorcery, but a supernatural power that allows a person to use very strong abilities just by wishing. He asks her, "Do all elves use magic?" She says, "No, just me because I'm the cursed child." She remembers people calling her scary, wanting to chase her, and preventing their children from playing with her. She tells Zugum, "There shouldn't be a power like this. No one should be born with white hair." He notices that her perspective is that of someone who has been told, "You're not human, and you have no right to have feelings or desires." Nevi continues, "One day, my village was attacked, and the villagers asked me to use my power to protect them in exchange for letting me live. At that moment, I felt something inside me break. When I was captured and the rest fled in despair, only a few survived, and the rest became corpses. When I saw them, I felt they deserved it and laughed at them." Zugum understands why she stopped expressing her emotions. She says, "I'm sorry, you must be disappointed now." He asks her, "Why would I feel that way? If I were you," end quote. 1. I would have killed the whole village, along with those who attacked. She is shocked and says, "But I don't think they would forgive me for what I did." He says, "They're dead, so it doesn't matter. Live and become stronger." She asks him, "Is it okay for me to become stronger?" He asks her, "Is possessing power wrong? Is the desire for power evil?" When she doesn't answer, he says, "If you're curious, I was once told it was evil by a girl I saved from a band of thieves a long time ago." He remembers when he told the girl, "It's natural to be defeated because you're weak," and she replied, "Do the weak have have no right to live? Will power make you great? He says to Nevi. At that time, I felt she had a normal childhood, and pity and sympathy are luxuries that make people careless. The comfortable life she lived made her weak. I didn't accept that, so I lived trying to become stronger. He moves closer to her and says, I told you I need you. She asks, am I really allowed to stay here? He says, of course, especially after the meal you made for me. I can't imagine my life without you now. Nevi cries intensely. That night, Zugum asks Nevi, do you want to learn sorcery? From what I saw today, you have no control over your magic. She replies with a question, do you think I can learn it? He says, I'm surprised by the amount of power you used today. Even though the collar around your neck is supposed to block mana, I'm still not sure if learning sorcery will help you control your magic, but at least you'll be able to use it to defend yourself. She agrees enthusiastically, wanting to be useful to Zugum and protect him. Then she says, regarding the story you told earlier, I felt that your power means you never understood how a weak person feels. You said it all has no meaning, but I think it was painful for you. He asks in surprise, why do you think that? She replies, I don't know, but when you were talking, I felt you were very sad. Suddenly, she says, you're not a bad person. You may not talk much, but I'll never forget how kindly you've treated me. Zugum's eyes well up at her words. The next day, Barbatos comes to the palace, annoyed because he heard about Zugum's fight with the knights and that he wasn't told. He says, even the sword maiden Shastel couldn't defeat you? Zugum replies, no, she was actually very strong and managed to destroy the barriers around the palace. Nevi enters with tea, and Barbatos is shocked that Zugum hasn't performed any experiments on her yet. He asks, are you keeping her alive to serve you? Zugum replies, no, Nevi is my apprentice now. I'll train her to help me in battle. Barbatos says, ah, I understand the mess in your palace courtyard now. Then he asks, do you want to become one of the demon lords? Zugum replies, all I want is the key to Nevi's collar, but if I have authority too, no one will dare touch Nevi. Then, he thinks to himself, even so, I'm still not strong enough to take that position. There are people stronger than me who have trained for hundreds of years. After Barbatos leaves, Zugum says, what did he even come here for? Nevi asks in surprise, isn't he your friend? Zugum replies, impossible. Choosing friends requires caution, she says in confusion. But, you looked very happy when he was here. Later, they go out to repair the barriers the knights destroyed, and Zugum begins teaching Nevi sorcery, giving her the experience he gathered over 10 years. Days pass, and he prepares her to rely on herself and become strong. After a month, a strange bird suddenly appears with a message for Zugum. He is surprised to find it's from the 12 demon lords. He goes to meet them in the ruins under the city, which they use as their hideout. As soon as he enters, he feels immense pressure from their mana. He speaks to them with a tone of arrogance, so no one underestimates him. They say to him, we've chosen you to become the 13th demon lord in place of Marcasius. They draw the demon lord emblem and tell him, to take the position, you must accept this emblem. Zugum feels an enormous amount of mana from the emblem, exactly matching what emanates from each of them. He says to them, this doesn't make sense. There are many sorcerers far stronger than I am. They reply, you're right, you're not strong enough yet, but despite that, no sorcerer can kill you. The first sorcerer you killed, Andras the Cursed, was a powerful person. What's amazing is that you were able to mimic his power at a glance. Not only that, but you quickly understood the nature of his sorcery. That's why you were able to create a uniquely powerful spell. Zugum remembers the sorcerer who imprisoned him when he was young, and thinks to himself, they've uncovered my secret weapon. They continue, we're impressed by your spells and talent, and we know no one can match you. If you want something from someone, you'll take it. Your power truly suits a lord. In time, you'll become the greatest sorcerer in history. He replies, if what you say is true, that means I can take all of your spells. They all laugh mockingly, and one of them, the only one wearing a white robe, replies, you're right, but know that we can take far more from you than you can take from us. He thinks of Nevi and realizes they're referring to her. They tell him, the wrath of a demon lord is no small matter. It's the erasure of everything in your life, whether people, matter, or memory. It means the complete removal of your existence. This is the nature of the beings you're facing now, and you'll become one of them. At that point, you'll never see peace again. You'll move from the darkness of sorcery to an even greater darkness. That's the world awaiting you. He thinks to himself, I've known all of this since the moment I decided to become a sorcerer. I knew the next step would be one of two things, either become a demon lord or die and be forgotten. But I can't drag Nevi into this darkness. So, he says to them, I agree to become a demon lord, but on one condition. They agree. At dusk, Zugum returns home. Nevi says, dinner is ready. He tells her, I've become one of the demon lords. She congratulates him. He continues, and since I've become a demon lord, I now have their possessions. He takes out the key to her collar and removes it. But suddenly, he says, I don't need you anymore. Leave here. After a while, Nevi is in the street, sitting in shock, unable to comprehend what happened to the point where she asks herself, why am I here? I was just making dinner for Zugum. Zugum. She gets up to return to the palace, but when she sees her collar, she remembers that Zugum actually kicked her out. She recalls his words when he said, "I need you," and collapses to her knees from the heartbreak she feels. Shastel approaches her and asks, "Are you okay?" Nevi stands up and asks, "Did you come to kill me?" Shastel is surprised that she seems happy about dying, and replies, "No, you misunderstood. I'm not here to harm you." Nevi insists that Shastel kill her. People see them and think Shastel is bothering Nevi, so they get angry at her. Maniola, the clothing shop owner, steps in and stands in front of Shastel. Shastel tries to explain to her and the people that she's not there to bother or kill her. Nevi reassures them, saying she didn't do anything wrong. Shastel cries because of their suspicion. Later, they all go to a restaurant. Maniola asks Shastel, "Weren't you bullying Nevi?" Shastel replies, and Nevi says, "No, she didn't do anything." Then, the food arrives, and Nevi tastes it, remembering that she was preparing dinner before Zugum kicked her out. Tears start falling from her eyes, and everyone becomes very worried. She tells them that Zugum kicked her out of the house. Shastel replies, "I thought he was a respectable man, but it seems he was just using you." Nevi replies, "No, Zugum isn't the kind of person to do that." Maniola asks, "Did something strange happen before he kicked you out?" Nevi replies, "Yes, he came and told me he had become a demon lord." Maniola says, "They are the most important sorcerers. The country we live in was ruled by one of the demon lords, named Marcasius, and we lived in peace. But ever since he died, very bad things have been happening," Shastel adds, "like sorcerers kidnapping girls to experiment on them." Maniola replies, "Yes, but the castle captured the person doing that. I think the one responsible was someone named the Face Stealer." Shastel remembers when Clavel told her that Zugon was responsible for the ongoing kidnappings. Nevi asks Maniola, "Why do people here have such a bad impression of the castle's knights?" Maniola replies, "Because they demanded a huge amount of money from us in exchange for saving us." Shastel feels guilty. Nevi says, "But Shastel isn't to blame. She didn't ask for that money." Shastel is very happy that Nevi is defending her and doesn't see her as guilty. Then, Shastel says, "The important thing is that we need to capture the demon lords. But the problem here is that we have 12 great swords, and there are 13 lords. The solution we've always used is to eliminate the newly appointed 13th lord before he becomes strong and poses a threat to us. Also, other sorcerers target him to advance their ranks." Nevi understands that, because of the impending war, Zugum distanced himself to protect her. Suddenly, Shastel asks her, "Could Zugum gather some sorcerers to kidnap people and experiment on them?" Nevi replies, "No, because he doesn't care about weak people. Even when he saved some merchants from bandits, he said he did it only because they were causing a disturbance." Nevi realizes, while talking, that he might have done it for her sake. Shastel replies, "You're right. Even when I was fighting him, he was lenient with me, because I'm a woman. I noticed something strange about him. I felt he needed help and compassion, but didn't show it." Nevi is surprised and amazed that someone else noticed what she had suspected. When she becomes certain, she feels she wants to go to Zugum to help him and stand by him. Shastel grabs her sword, and Nevi thinks she's going to fight Zugum. Shastel says, "No, there's a sorcerer impersonating him and committing crimes in his name. I have to get rid of him." Maniola tells Nevi, "If anything happens to you, or you have a problem, come to me." Nevi asks her, "Why are you treating me so kindly?" She replies in surprise, "Because you're my friend." Nevi is shocked and says, "I've never had friends before." Maniola and Shastel are happy and say, "We want to be your friends too." Shastel gets annoyed and asks, "Is it okay for a knight to be friends with a sorcerer's assistant?" Then she says, "Just kidding, we're already friends." Suddenly, Shastel's companions, the knights, enter, and when they see Nevi, they become terrified of her because of what she did to them last time. Suddenly, a black aura surrounds them, attacks, and kidnaps Nevi and Shastel, saying, "I am Zugum. If you want the girls, come to my castle." On the other hand, Zugum is in the forest, having captured some knights who fell into his trap, the one he made with Nevi. He thinks of Nevi and says to himself, "The people in Kion Wit love her, and she'll definitely live a peaceful and happy life among them, free from worries about sorcerers, the castle, and everything else." Before he can leave, one of the knights grabs his leg and says, "I don't care what you do to us, but please, Commander Shastel, she was the only one who defended you and believed in your innocence. She even opposed the castle lord to stand by your side." Suddenly, Maniola appears in front of Zugum and tells him that Nevi and Shastel have been kidnapped. He is shocked and thinks he was too late in distancing her from him, but he's afraid to go save her because he doesn't want anyone to know she's connected to him, as they might attack her. Maniola interrupts his thoughts and says, "Why are you hesitating? Nevi was trying to return to you and wanted to stay by your side to support you." He feels that her words and her weak punches against his body are far more powerful than any attack he's ever faced in his life. He decides to go save the person who cares about him the most. Maniola decides to go with him to save her friends. The knights grab him and beg him to take them along. Maniola asks him, "Do you even know where we're going?" He replies, "Yes, I know who did all of this. Meanwhile, Nevi wakes up and finds herself restrained, with Shastal beside her. She notices that the shackles block mana, just like the collar that was around her neck, but they can be broken without a special key. Suddenly, Barbatos enters. Nevi says to him, I thought you were Zugum's friend. He laughs and says, I never expected anyone to use that word for sorcerers. Then he asks her, have you ever heard of someone named Andros the Cursed? He tells her, he was the first sorcerer Zugum killed, and coincidentally, I was his apprentice. Nevi is startled. He says, don't worry, no sorcerer cares about avenging their teacher. I would have killed him myself if Zugum hadn't done it, because the castle he lives in, all the money he spent on you, even the books he reads, all of that was supposed to be mine. Can you blame me? I'm the one who incited the castle knights against him, but it didn't work because those fools left too many traces, and those I sent to fight Zugum directly were all defeated. Shastal asks him in surprise, so, you're the one who was kidnapping the girls? He says to her, you just realized that? Shastal becomes very angry. He says, the face stealer who was chasing you the day Zugum saved you came up with the idea, but we still needed resources to create large-scale techniques that would prove to the demon lords that I deserve to be one of them. The white-haired elf's mana should be enough to open the gate. Nevi replies, I don't think what you're doing matters, because Zugum has already become the 13th lord. Barbatos is shocked and says, so he stole my castle, my wealth, and now he's stolen the position I wanted? He gets angry and drags Nevi to the ground near the magical circle he drew. Shastal yells at him, if you want to take someone, take me. He replies, don't rush, your turn will come. Nevi tries to resist, because she wants to return to Zugum and help him. Just as Barbatos is about to unleash his sinister spell on her, Zugum breaks through the wall and nullifies his spell. Barbatos is shocked and asks him, when did you notice that I was behind all this? Zugum replies, I suspected it ever since the face stealer appeared. I didn't believe that someone who begged me to let him live could break the barriers around my castle. The only person I could think of was you, because you're the only one used to breaching my security system. I know you use dimensions, can teleport anywhere, and summon anything. On the same day the face stealer appeared, you came to visit me, as if you were checking the results. I'd be crazy not to suspect you. And here ends the first part. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to receive the rest of the parts. I wish you a nice day.